So I was driving to work. I think it was a Tuesday, maybe. And I got the call. I got the call that I won't say a call that people don't like to get, but it's a unique call. You only get that call a couple times in your life. And my wife, she calls me. She says, "Look, they've got a room. There's a room in the inn," is what she said. "They've got a room and they want us to come on down to the hospital." And so, we had essentially been on a waiting list. They wanted Molly to be inducted because she was, I think she was past her due date. I don't even know if that's true or not. But
was she inducted to the Hall of Fame?
She was. She was inducted into the Mother's Hall of Fame. And so, they called us up. They were like, we've got a bed ready. Of course, I was halfway to work, so I've got to turn around. You and Jackson were actually at the house. And because, we had kind of an idea based on her last doctor's appointment, and we said, "Hey, look, the doctor says she's going to put us on the list, which means they can call us 24/7 to come and have this baby, essentially." And sure enough, we had to leave the ringer on her phone overnight. I asked the doctor, I said, "Look, is it possible they call us at 1 a.m.? I mean, that's not cool." She said, "Yeah, oftentimes they'll call you at 1 a.m. I was like, "Oh, please don't do that." That's going to stink. But yeah, like I said, I was on my way to work. So it was, probably close to 7. Molly gets the call from the hospital. They say, "We have room in the inn." Molly calls me. She says, "Time to fly, time to spread our wings and do this thing." So we've got our bags packed. I come back. We drive to the hospital. We leave Stetson with you and Jackson. Jackson made me a delicious little, cortado, a little something like that for the trip. So that was grand. And yeah, we got to the hospital and they induced Molly, and it was a quicker process than when we had Stetson. Stetson was like overnight and the whole next day. And then that night we had Stetson. But with Callan, we went that morning. They induced her probably around 10, 11. And then by 5 o'clock that night, we had the baby. So, there's kind of a chill process at the very beginning when you're being induced. They come in, they check for what they call dilation. That's size. That's all I'll say.
Diameter.
Yes. And so really we're just sitting there just watching old Southern Charms, reruns on Bravo, stuff like that. Cause it's noon on a Tuesday. There's not really much on TV. So we go and watch some of those reruns, and it was great. I put in our little Christmas letter that we send out. I said that was probably the best vacation we've had in like a year, because other people are watching Stetson. We just get to lay around. Molly's, laying in a hospital bed. I'm lounged in the dad's chair, just watching reality TV for pretty much a whole day. It was pretty incredible. And then, the doctor came in and said, "All right, it's time to push." And then she pushed, I think 4 or 5 times, took a few minutes, and the baby was here. So I understand that our experience is maybe not unique, but we certainly we're blessed to have had easy pregnancies and easy births and deliveries. I say we, I mean Molly. I did nothing. But yeah, it's a wild situation. It's gory. but it's beautiful at the same time, you know? So
Well, some people just are into gory things, you know?
some people are, but I don't know. I don't know if they're into that kind of gory thing. I mean, it's unique. It's not like it's not like Michael Myers or something, it's not that kind of gory. It's it's more like Saving Private Ryan gory, you know. So, but yeah, it was a great experience. We probably the only downside was there was room in labor and delivery, but in the postpartum ward where they moved us to, they were pretty much completely full. And so we had to share. There was like one room that's split, like on the end of the hallway. It's like a shared room. And we had to stay in a shared room with these other people. You know, they weren't like right next to us or anything, but that was a unique experience. You really felt like you couldn't have a conversation with your spouse without someone else listening in. So I was sure to say the most ridiculous things I could just to hopefully have these other people, think that we were crazy or something like that. So.
Well, that's a powerful story. Yeah, that's a powerful story. And I think we'd have to give it up to our listeners to make this decision, but I think that is an okay reason to miss 3 months of the podcast. Like I said to our listeners, we have a very generous paternity leave, but I wanted to ask some questions maybe on what some of your experiences were like after the fact. You know, you had a first child. First child requires a lot of attention. You're brand new. You're trying to figure it out. Second child, you feel like you're much more in a rhythm. You care a little less about all the intricacies. But if you had to give a parenting tip to someone who was having a second child, what would that be?
I feel like it's the classic, for us, I mean, it was the classic second child experience, right? I'm a second child. You're a second child. So we know this. You're a middle child, so you probably understand it more than me. But when you're the second child, you really get the scraps. I think the parents start to realize, look, we don't need to boil these bottles or sanitize them every 6 hours, between every single one. So much so to the point where we're like, should we even sanitize these bottles ever? It really pops into your mind. You're like, wow, I'm really busy. Do I even need to sanitize these bottles? No, you don't need to. And so, obviously we love baby Callan and we provide for her, obviously, but I don't want to say the level of care is less, but it kind of is, because you have a 2-year-old who's running around, poking her face, poking her eye. She's asleep. He gets up. He's a 1/4 inch from her face, just breathing on her face. And then he just like pokes her in the cheek really hard and runs away. And you're like, what are you? And she starts crying and wakes up. What are you doing? What are you doing? But I will say my one piece of advice is, I know it's a new baby and babies are cute when they're fresh and chunky and everything else. But, be aware whenever you're, loving on the baby and your toddler, your other child is in the room, be aware that, they're watching that, and it's good for them to see that. But you want to make sure that the season of adding a new family member isn't full of you kissing the baby and telling the baby how cute they are and then not saying anything to the toddler. So what we try to do is, whenever we're being sweet with baby Callan, we like to, after we say something to her, we'll turn to Stetson and let him know how appreciated he is as well. Just because there's a lot of emotions in play, and yeah, I mean, he doesn't let us forget that he's in the room or anything like that. Like I'll hold Cal and like, oh, you're so cute, and kiss her, and Stetson will just like walk up to me and do something ridiculous, like, oh, look over here. So you can't, no one's going to forget about the first child, but you just want to make sure that emotional distress of adding a family member is lessened as much as possible.
Certainly, I think you could even, from what I'm hearing you say, is a second child is a natural disruptor. And that's not a bad statement, but it disrupts the familial relationships. But you said you think you care a little less. I don't think that's true. I think at intrinsic value, you care the same, but maybe based on evidence of work, you're unable to complete the amount of work you were for your first child. Sanitizing bottles, etc. But I think you bring up a good point, is they can live without this unsanitized bottle. That's a luxury.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not the way to think about it, but it comes to mind. I'm like, okay, are they sanitizing bottles in the Philippines, or like these rural places? Not rural, maybe that's not the right word, but not necessarily third world countries. Obviously, I don't want to, lower the standard of care to a third world country, but I'm like, are people really out there just sanitizing these bottles all the time? I don't think they are. But who knows?
And is the Philippines a third world country?
I honestly don't know. I've never been. I
do not. I don't think it is. But I could be wrong. That's where Jonathan Phoenix is from.
He could probably tell us.
He could.
There's probably parts of every country that seem like a third world country.
Oh, 100%.
I know we've got our fair share. But yeah, it was a great time. I appreciate you allowing this paternity leave. Really allowed for some time where I could be with the baby, bond with the baby, lots of skin to skin and things like that.
Well, it wasn't
so I appreciate
me.
You and Rodrigo.
Yeah, it was Rodrigo, because I was pressing Rodrigo. I said, look, dude, we're losing money left and right. I can't keep this up. And Rodrigo just kept saying, you got to give him time. You got to give him time. Nothing ever lasts if you force a return. He will quit. And I said, it might be worth it. I can't keep going like this. No, we're glad. Rodrigo and I are glad you've returned. We've got something special coming up, a little change in structure. We'll see how long that lasts. We are two humans that are succumb to nature often. But I think you maybe saw a couple things rather than the full week. Maybe like a couple things that you were interested in sharing.
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, I really just wanted to kind of touch on a few highlights, I guess, from my paternity leave. And also, I feel like with pop culture and reality TV, there's a lot of good content out there right now. We've got Summer House, Southern Charm. There's all kinds of stuff on right now. So I don't know if you're watching any of those, but I would love to do some breakdowns of that as well. But yeah, I feel like for the paternity leave, we had Thanksgiving. Grammy and Grumpy came over. Christmas, you guys came over. My family came down right around New Year. And so it was, I'll say this, it was very nice to have lots of hands to help with Callan, for sure. working half days and stuff like that. One thing that I have noticed about my wife, my spouse, is that really since the election, she's not very politically involved. I'll say that. She is, I won't say politically indifferent, but she's can we all just get along type deal, but also, realizes that there's certain political stances that are, that you can't be indifferent on. But she is turned in her maternity leave into she probably, I don't know if she would agree with this statement, but I think it's totally true. She is a Maha mom. Have you ever heard of this?
No. Does that mean political tyrant?
She was at the Capitol on J6. That's all I'll say. She is big into Gary Brecka. Ever heard of him?
Oh yeah.
She's asking me, hey, how much do you think it would be to put a cold plunge in our townhouse?
Then I'm a Maha guy.
I don't know, 15 grand probably. Don't you want a car? How much would it be to, she's not actually making these requests. She would think that they're great, but she's big on the vitamins right now. She's like, you don't get enough vitamin D. I'm like, you don't know what I do from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. You have no clue how much vitamin D I'm getting. You're right, but you don't know that.
We should increase your communication in your marriage then.
Well, I'm like, look, as far as my vitamin intake, yeah, I could probably use some K3 or whatever and vitamin D. But she sends me the podcast with him and I listen to it on my drive, which is from, 5:45 to 6:45 in the mornings. And she asked me later that evening, she's like, so what'd you think about it? And I was like, yeah, it's good. I think it's crazy that most Americans are missing, folate, folic acid, whatever. She's like, it's not folate, it's folic acid. Did you even listen to it? I'm like, obviously, I just didn't remember the exact molecules that we're talking about here. So she's got me taking these multivitamins. I said, look, I'm bad at swallowing pills, so I'm going to have to take the gummies. So I take the gummy, men's once a day multivitamin. They're covered in little sugar granulars. And they're delicious. I look forward to them every night.
I think the plastic that is made out of might be reversing the vitamins in it.
But yeah, she's like, once you're done with those silly little gummies, I'm going to get you some real multivitamins. I'm like, I don't want to. She literally takes 6 pills every night. They're like horse pills. They're huge. I'm like, I don't want to swallow these giant pills, babe. Can I just chew my gummies? It's something I look forward to them every night. It's like a little gummy bear, a gummy worm, And then I take my vitamin D. It's like D3, K2 or something like that.
Yes.
And I call it a night. And she's like, she bought us these, the vitamin, I don't even know really what to call them. It's like a little plastic thing and you fill it up with the vitamins for the day. And it's got like Sunday through Saturday.
Yes.
So it's like a pill, organizer for old people. For old people that have 6 pills to take each day, like her. But yeah, so she's big on the vitamins right now. Need to make sure we get all of our nutrients, and I appreciate that. She's very conscious about what the kids get. We're buying, I know eggs are expensive right now, but she's buying the cage-free, back massage the chicken's eggs. Those aren't cheap. And she does breathing every morning. She does breathing exercises. And I won't do it here on the podcast, but it sounds like I wake up and I hear, in the other room, I'm like, is there a freaking gas leak somewhere in here? I mean, daggum. This is next level. So she's saying her mantras, she is meditating, she's doing her breathing exercises. And I'm like, I don't know if she's on the toilet, if she's doing breathing exercises, I don't know what's going on anymore. But she's gone full Maha. She's been RFK'd, as they say. So
I personally love the Maha lifestyle. I think that we could benefit from it. I was reading this book, Breath, and it's what some of this comes out from. But it is all about how your breathing, and we've talked about it on the podcast, actually, your breathing impacts your life. How you breathe impacts how your brain operates, the amount of calories you burn, how it breaks down food. But before you clear up your breathing pathways, it talks about how chewing impacts your breathing. And because of our humans now have a soft diet, so our passages close because our jaws and esophagus are not being used and stretched, like worked out. It's just like working out a muscle, like you would work out your shoulders. But because we don't eat hard stuff, we eat gummies and soup, then we're not working out our jaws and we're not working out our esophagus. And that's why I like to go on cruises, is because that's like a 7-day workout of the jaw. You know what I'm saying? You don't really give yourself a break from using your jaw. And by the end of 7 days, you're sore and you're good for another year. And then you just keep going. Or an all-inclusive resort for 7 days. Something that'll get your jaw moving, that's what you need. But yeah, I do like Gary Brecka personally. I think he's a bit of an extremist. But I feel like there is a market for the ability to be a Maha. And your original question, how much is a cold plunge? Get one for $900, man. They sell them. And then get in it for 3 minutes every day and see how much that costs if you do that for 300 days out of the year. Yeah. 3 minutes, see what the price tag is per minute.
Yeah, you could compare that, I guess, to like buying bags of ice or something. I'm sure there's a break-even point there, I'm sure.
You can get it in the bathtub, just buy a ton of ice.
Yeah, that's what we used to do in high school. But no, she doesn't. She doesn't really do mantras and stuff like that. That was a joke. I think mantras are, maybe, I don't know. Maybe depending on what the mantra is, I guess you would want it to be centered on the Lord.
I'm a child of God. I am a child of God.
Right. Those sort of
evil things will not prosper in the name of Jesus.
Yeah. I think a lot of times you hear mantra and you think of some chick in Orange County doing yoga saying, I'm proud of myself. I will always be happy with myself, good vibes type deal.
Yes. That is a in manifestation of the enemy.
Just It's true.
That was
It's
a bit
true.
of a strong statement. I don't know if I agree. I think God wants us to be happy with ourselves, but I think we can't idolize that.
Yeah. And I think the origins of yoga and, just with, you've got, release your aura and, your chakra and all, it's the origins of yoga. I don't know what they are, but I know that they're not based in sound theology.
Yes.
It's still spiritual, which means that it is of the enemy. And kind of the same thing with mantras. I feel like a lot of other, I don't know if like Hindus do mantras and stuff like that, but I feel like it's very new agey, crystals. It's in that same vein, which is clearly demonic. So
Can I say something?
I would love for you to.
I think that Christians don't do mantras enough. And I'm not talking about what we just talked about, vibes. I'm good at everything. I'm great. Today's going to be a great day, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about, I think Christians are scared of even touching that. But I think if every day we would sit down and pick 6 promises from the Bible that God reveals himself to his people. Well, one of those is God will reveal himself to people. One of those, a promise from the Bible, is that we're commissioned to go and share the gospel. One of the promises of the Bible is that followers of Jesus will become more like Jesus if they want to, or they'll want to become more like Jesus. My point is, our mantras, I think we get frightened by the word. Manifestation mantra, those kinds of things, that we run away from it. But if we were to create mantras that are all about God, that's a beautiful topo you have.
Thank you.
If our mantras were to be the promises of the Bible every morning, I think we'd be a lot better off. But I do think there's a stigma around the mantra vibe thing that we don't even cross into that threshold.
Right. Yeah, one thing that Molly has started doing with Stetson each morning, and she's told me this because I'm gone by the time he wakes up during the week, but she'll like say she'll say like a set thing each morning that she has him repeat back to her. It's like, good morning, God. This is your day. I am your child. Show me the way. So she
Bars.
just does it. She does that each morning. It is bars. But yeah, like that would be like I don't know if that would technically be a mantra, but close enough to it where it would be, suitable for a child and also gospel centered. So, but yeah, it's pretty wild. I think with paternity leave, she's got some time on her hands. She's able to dive into this stuff, and she's just doing a little biohacking. So,
well, I'll tell you, I went on a nutritionist journey during your paternity leave. I met with this woman named Clancy, and Clancy, she showed me how important our microbiome is. The problem I have is I'm not eating the right amounts of food, and then I'll eat too much bad food because I haven't had anything with nutrients in my body. I think of Jeff Harrington, Brian Harrington's father. He brings cookies into the office every Monday. Well, 6 weeks go by and I'm eating so many cookies because I haven't I didn't eat breakfast. I didn't eat lunch, or I didn't eat a nutritious lunch. And so I feel my tank is empty, and I fill it with sugar and carbs, and I find myself in a hole because I have no good nutrients going into my body. Well, Clancy was like, are you really surprised by this? That you feel crappy? And I said, no, I'm not surprised. But sometimes it takes the verbal processing to really lock it in. Either way, my time with Clancy was ended because I was scammed by my insurance.
They didn't pay for it?
I don't know if that would get me arrested or what, but no, my insurance. No, the company, they paid for my sessions that they thought the insurance was going to cover. I quit after they told me the sessions were not covered. But my insurance just never covers anything on me. Nothing like that. Money. Correct. So we pay insurance, and then we pay on top of that.
Nice.
It's fantastic. But isn't that the fascinating thing? Clancy, I can't say enough good things about Clancy. She was awesome. She knew what she was saying. She even offered to help me as one last final consultation because she understood why I needed to stop. But either way, the nutrition is interesting. We've talked about enough. I'm not going to belabor it. One of the other things that I wanted to ask you about is you're wearing a Loverboy sweatshirt, and I do know you are a lover boy. I mean, that's just whenever people think of bread, they immediately think Loverboy.
That's right.
But I want to say that that's about Summer House, and Summer House, I believe, is on episode 4 upcoming. So they've released 3 episodes. What are some things that have been on your mind as you've been watching Summer House? Anything that's sticking out to you?
Are you watching it right now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, phenomenal. I think we have confirmation that Lindsay is crazy. I mean, we've had that for years, right? But this season is even more of a confirmation, right? She, at the end of last season, her fiance, Carl, breaks up with her, calls off the wedding. First episode of the next season, exactly 1 year later, she's announcing that she's pregnant with her boyfriend, which they've been together for, I mean, can only be a few months, right? So,
well, it wasn't exactly 1 year later because it happened at the end.
Right. I mean, less than a year. So I don't know the timing between the end of the season to the beginning, but it's, maybe 7 months, 6 months, something like that. So it's pretty wild. Quick turnaround for her. But they were showing all these flashbacks. She's like, by next summer, I want to be pregnant. And then it showed her and Carl calling off the wedding. And then she does a pregnancy announcement. It's like, well, she got it one way or another. So she's a little crazy. She's walking around with her belly out, and she doesn't even have a bump yet. So that was, and it's not that she doesn't have a bump. It's just that it's a little.
It's not bumpy.
It's not bumpy. Bumps are nice whenever they're round and a little taut, like you can show off a bump. But right now it just kind of looks like she's got a little bit of a gut. Like if you didn't know who she was and she was walking around with her belly out, you'd be like, why's your belly out? Do you feel the same? I mean, whenever like in
Which
the
I
last
guess
episode,
is that a compliment? That's the reverse of never asking a woman if she's pregnant.
yeah, why is your belly out? She's like, oh,
Why
I'm
is your
pregnant.
belly
Oh,
out?
congrats, I
You
guess.
don't look like it.
Yeah,
You
right.
just look like you have a good.
Yes.
No, don't say that to a woman, especially not Lindsay. I think she might kill you.
She probably would. She probably would. Yeah, and then Jesse Solomon, he's really doing his thing. He's a bit of a he's hilarious. I love him hanging out with the guys because he's just such a funny dude. He's a guy that you would want in your guy friend group to just have a good time. But he's a player. So he's kind of at a crossroads where he's into this girl, Lexi, and in all these shows, they're like, oh, we need to, we're dating for a few weeks. We need to decide if we're going to be exclusive. We need to have that discussion, which is so insane. I'm like, you've been dating for 6 weeks and you're not having the discussion about if you're exclusive or not. Like that's pretty wild to me. I'm sure it comes as a shock to your system as well.
I don't know if it's a shock. I think it's just it's a systematic issue. I say it's not a shock because that's just what dating is. I was talking to somebody here, and dating was originated so that it was an exchange. I buy, not me personally, but the man buys a woman food, takes them out on a date in exchange for sex. That's
Wow.
what dating is. That's how it originated. So I guess they are playing. That is the real dating. They are doing the real dating, which is just not biblical whatsoever. It's actually quite sad. I couldn't personally do it. Even disregard the sex part. If I was dating somebody and it wasn't exclusive, I can't do that.
Right. And they're also just in it for the food. You're like, hey, how was your day? She's like, where are we going to dinner tonight? You're like, whoa, easy. Wait, you going to let me get an appetizer? I wasn't clam chowder before. Oh, goodness. Where did this guy or gal say that sort of dating originated? He was saying that that's the origins of dating? I just have a hard time believing that.
That is the origin of dating. Well, before it was courtship or arranged marriage between family members.
I'm thinking about the 1950s, 1940s, whatever. You can't tell me that that's how dating was. Would you consider that courtship?
Well, I don't know what's going on in your mind exactly right now.
I mean,
in the 1950s.
My mind, I'm thinking about the 1950s. People are respectful and, courteous and chivalrous and things like that. Not saying that people weren't doing unscrupulous things while dating. But I have a hard time believing that it was this transactional thing back in the 1950s.
I didn't say it was I see what you're saying. I don't know when it originated or where it originated. All I said is this is what this guy was saying. I don't know if it's true, though I do believe it is. I believe him as a source. I think he's solid. But I haven't looked it up on the internet. But if one of our listeners is listening, I think that's worthy of a search. But the fact does sound correct. I think dating in the Christian realm has been remarkably misconstrued because you're trying to take, if this was the origin of dating, the transactional piece, then Christians try to take that and make it somewhat biblical. But you're kind of taking, it's hard to take some pieces and leave the others. So that's where your whole talking stage comes into play. Trying to figure out, why can't you even communicate to the other person, type stuff. You get so scared. But back in the day, I'm pretty sure it was courtship.
Maybe it's just morphed into this thing, just as our culture is so sexualized. Maybe it just morphs into this, from courtship to dating, into what it is now, where people
start calling things situationships.
We're in a situationship. you know,
I'll give you a situation.
Yeah, I buy dinner.
Now imagine clam chowder. Here's the situation.
Oh, dude, and guess what? I really splurged with the appetizer, so you know what I got
some lobster bisque.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. But yeah, Jesse Solomon, he's a funny guy. He's got a huge smile, and that makes me laugh. But the way that they live their lives is not to be commended, for sure.
And it's not sustainable, I think, but I also think this is where dating is changing, is why don't people just go have sex and dinner all the time? It's because it's not sustainable. You can do it for a period of time, but you're going to get tired. Everyone gets tired everyone gets full at some point, no matter how good the meal is. And that's actually quite applicable to the actual food and the metaphorical food. But that's why you see so much divorce in non-Christian families is because, aside from abuse, of course, but there's really no point in getting married if you're not a believer in Christ. Otherwise, if you have no reason to get married and you have no knowledgeable foundation aside from tax breaks, you can just leave at any point. Here's dinner, here's food. Let's argue, make up, make out, do it again.
What a cycle. Vicious cycle.
It's not what Mufasa had in mind.
It's not what he had for us, man. I'm assuming you're watching Southern Charm as well.
Yeah, I do think that's probably one of my favorite shows. I love the people. I love everything about it. I do get frustrated that we're watching 40-year-olds make the same mistakes over and over, but you get to see them grow as well.
Yeah. I feel like, 2 seasons ago, Austin was, he's still kind of the same person. I think he's grown a lot the past couple of years. Obviously, he's had a lot of bad things that he's done, bad decisions and things like that. But it seems like he's been going to a therapist or something like that. And seems like he's really grown. Shep is a disaster. More so than
But I also think he's grown.
I think he's going to have to grow from this situation. I'm assuming you saw the text that he wrote to Sierra.
I love your perfect freckled lips. I know you want this.
Yeah, this girl will not text him back or pick up the phone. And he's like, I know how much you love me. I know that it's hard for you to admit how much you love me. And at the end, he says, okay, my TED Talk is over now. And he just thought that was like the funniest, like, ending to a text of all time. Oh, that was bad stuff. The cringe in Austin and Craig's faces whenever he read it to them, because it was like 6 a.m. and he like jumps into bed with with Austin and reads it, and he's like, dude, I want to shrivel up and die right now after you read that to me. Oh goodness.
Yeah, I heard Sienna was never mind. Excuse me.
I think supposedly she's a fan of the show. And so that's what makes her so suspicious, is that, you know, she could be, I mean, she's famous, right? I think she's Miss Bahamas or whatever. But it seems like she might be targeting these guys because she's a fan of the show. She knows how much money they make, what their families are worth and stuff like that. That's one theory, at least. And it seems to be a pretty strong one. But yeah, not a good situation. Hopefully he gets over it.
It's I think an interesting situationship.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I just can't imagine. I mean, the age difference alone, especially with Shep. I mean, he's so old. He's really turning into Thomas Ravenel. It's pretty gross.
Yeah, I think he's like 70 and she's 20. It's like a real Robert Kraft situation.
Right.
But no, that makes sense. But I do think I'm enjoying some of the showmanship. I think what you said about Austin is accurate. There's something going on with him. He's sparked an interpersonal revival within himself, and I admire his ability to, you know, be friends with most everyone, even after his little dramatic happenings with most everyone on the show. Aside, he can't seem to get past this JT Realmuto situation.
Yeah.
Which I get it. JT stood up on a chair and slapped him in the face or something.
Right. So, yeah,
but
I thought he was doing very well, but
yeah, he got a little angry out of nowhere, which I found interesting. But again, we don't get to see the whole thing. We're just seeing what they put in front of us. We are cogs in the machine, and the Bravo people are influencing our thoughts from the moment the show starts.
I've seen some of the side-by-side clips of what you see on the show versus the raw footage, and like how they edit it. And it's people, you know, they take a clip from one conversation that's happening at the same table and like transpose it into a conversation that happened 3 minutes later, where it's like, oh, did you say this about this person? And he's like, no, I never did that. Even though it's like, everyone's like, why are you lying? You know, but they're editing this to make it more juicy. But I did think it was interesting that Austin, he seemed like he was doing really well. And then it must have been just boiling up in him because something snapped. And it was to the point of, we're not arguing. I'm just being mean and saying hateful things to you. So that was unfortunate. But JT, man, he is a static character. He is going to be JT no matter what.
Yeah, it fascinating. He's different than the rest. I forget how he got in there, how he got in the mix, because it was recent, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was just last year that he started, but not off to a strong start. That's for sure. And look,
what else is on you? Oh yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, I don't know the Charleston dating scene, but he seems like he's got a lot of information, and he's really putting it all out there. If he doesn't have information, then he's a pathological liar. But
I think the Charleston dating scene is broken.
That's probably a
That
good
would
way
be.
to describe it.
What else is on your mind? Anything within the past 3 months? Maybe one thing that really hit home for you. Maybe what's one of the most rewarding things you've experienced within the past 3 months that you think our listeners should know about?
One of the most rewarding things, I guess, kind of going back and just touching on the having another child entering the household, kind of disrupting the order of the house. I've definitely seen a shift in Stetson's affection towards me because he realizes that the baby is with mom a lot and I'm just there. So he has definitely been more, giving me hugs, just being sweet to me. So that is one thing that has really been nice. And I think it's also because he's getting older. He's able to articulate. I mean, not that he's really articulating much, but he's able to express his feelings better than several months ago. So that's been really sweet to see, is just how he's just grown up so much. And I don't know. It's terribly sweet.
Praise God. I hate terrible sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, I love terrible sweet. I think he got two great children and they have two great parents. It's kind of one of those, as one grows, the other does as well. You know what I'm saying? And that can be physical, metaphorical growth. I was in a class on the book of Nehemiah on Wednesday nights, and we were studying what it looks like to be a man in this world. How do you take action as a man? And they were talking, the book of Nehemiah 11 and 12 talks about how the men were leading. They were leading their families, and that was a blessing not just to their family, but to the city in which they lived, Jerusalem. And the Bible literally said that. And I think it's cool. I think it's a cool look into, we don't reflect on how leadership within a family can be a blessing to a city. It can be a blessing to your church. And most importantly, or second most importantly, it's a blessing to your family. Most importantly, you are being obedient to Scripture. But I think you do see growth as you're a blessing. I'm talking to you as you're a blessing to your family. I think you are blessed by your family. And so I think that positive correlating linear relationship is a beautiful thing.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a wonderful word. Is this a group that y'all are doing at the church? Like a Wednesday night group, or?
Yeah, Wednesday night men's study, Book of Nehemiah. And it's been good. No doubt about it.
That's great. I'll touch on this next week, but I'm going through a book right now called Disciplines of a Godly Man. I don't know if you ever heard of it. But we've got a group of guys.
Mantra's one of those?
What is it?
Mantra's one of those?
Yes. I am a manly man. I am a manly man in this outfit. I am a manly man. But no, we've got a group of 5 guys or so reading through it. We're going to meet up next Saturday night and chat through it and smoke some stogies, and it's going to be a good time.
Let's go. I look forward to hearing that. And I'm excited to be back with you. And I know our listeners are excited that they don't have to listen to me anymore. And it's just going to be a great second season. Because we praise God for more life, and more life creates more content. And that's why we do this thing. We want to be quite frank with you. And that is, we love you deeply and generously. And that's precisely why we will see you in 7 days.